The Digital Demon. A Chinese horror story. Wang Luo Mo. 5 Tales of Online Darkness in Shanghai. They say the internet never forgets. But sometimes the most dangerous thing about the internet is not what it remembers. It is what it creates. People who exist only in your screen. Personas built from stolen photographs and borrowed personalities and elaborate lies. Digital masks worn by real people with real intentions that have nothing to do with the friendship they are pretending to offer. These are 5 stories from Shanghai. All of them happened online. The danger in all of them was very, very real. Story 1. The forum ghost Xiaoling was 17 years old and had been a member of an online fan community since she was 14. She had grown up in Shanghai, but felt, in the way that certain teenagers feel, regardless of where they grow up, that her real community existed elsewhere. In the forums and chat rooms where people who shared her specific constellation of interests gathered and talked for hours without the awkward social negotiations that real-life interaction required. She was funny online, sharp, quick with references, the kind of person other forum members enjoyed having around because she made the conversations better. She had a persona, playful, pink-themed, deliberately cheerful in a space full of people performing darkness, and the community responded to it warmly. Then Zhang Dark appeared. He posted photographs of himself regularly. Thick glasses, a distinctive mustache, very pale and thin. An unusual-looking person, but interesting in the way that unusual-looking people sometimes are. He was not part of her regular circle, but he commented on her posts occasionally. Simple things. Huh, nice, interesting. One day he sent her a private message asking when they were going to start properly talking. She said now was fine. She was happy to talk to anyone. They talked about music, films, the shared interests that had brought them both to this particular corner of the internet. It was pleasant enough. He was articulate and had opinions. But then something shifted. Zhang Dark had decided, without any evidence she could identify, that Xiaoling was depressed, that she was a troubled girl in need of saving, that her cheerful online persona was a mask over genuine anguish. She was not depressed. She had never suggested she was depressed. She was, if anything, one of the more genuinely content people in a forum full of people performing emotional devastation. But Zhang Dark had constructed a version of her in his head. The sad girl beneath the pink cheerfulness, the wounded soul only he could see. And he was committed to it regardless of what she told him. He began defending her from other forum members, people she considered friends, people she joked around with in the aggressive, affectionate way of that particular community, suddenly found themselves receiving threatening private messages from Zhang Dark telling them to leave Xiaoling alone. She told him to stop. He told her she didn't know what was best for herself because of her mental illness. She had no mental illness. She told him that too. He told her she was in denial. She stopped responding to his messages. The forum software had no blocking function. She tried to ignore him. He continued commenting on every post she made, defending her, warning people away, making her look like she needed protection from a community that was actually her home. Then he sent her a final private message. He forgave her, he said, for the way her friends had treated him. He wouldn't let it get in the way of their life together. One day he would come and rescue her from these people. Xiaoling read this message 3 times. Then she told her 3 closest forum friends. People she had discovered also went to her school in Shanghai. What was happening? They took it seriously in the way that online friends who are also real-life friends can take things seriously. 2 weeks later, Xiaoling was called out of class by the school office. The message said her father had come to take her out due to a family emergency. Her father had left when she was 4. She felt the wrongness of it before she reached the parking lot. Zhang Dark was not 17. The person leaning against a dirty old van in the school parking lot was a man in his 50s or 60s. The photographs he had posted online appeared to have been taken decades earlier. His hair was gray. His face was deeply lined. He wore clothes that belonged to a different era. He called out her forum username when he saw her across the parking lot. His face broke into a frantic smile and he began walking toward her. He grabbed her wrist. He was talking about rescuing her, about finally being here, about taking her away from the filth. What happened next happened quickly. Her three friends, who had followed her out of the school with the instinct of people who had read the same private messages she had, appeared from behind her. One of them hit Zhang Dark across the back with a skateboard hard enough to break it. The second swung her bag, heavy, covered in band pins, into the side of his head. The third, a small person who turned out to be surprisingly strong, pinned his arms behind his back and shoved him against the van. By the time the school security arrived, Zhang Dark was on the ground and Xiaoling was standing with her friends, shaking but unhurt. The police came. Zhang Dark was taken away. The forum moderators banned him immediately when Xiaoling reported the incident. She never found out how he had discovered her school. He claimed she had told him. She had not. She had never told anyone online where she lived or went to school. The four friends got the rest of the day off. They spent it online together, finally posting the story they had been holding. The response from the community was immediate and warm. It was, Xiaoling thought, exactly what communities were for. Story 2. The girl who wasn't Mingyu was 15 years old when Hualing first sent him a message on the instant messaging platform everyone was using that year. She had found him through a mutual interest group, one of those features that old platforms had that let you discover and message strangers, which seemed normal at the time and seems completely insane in retrospect. Hualing was 15 too, she said. She lived across the city. She had a strict stepmother. She was warm and funny. About his parents, about school, about the anxieties of being 15 in a city that moved as fast as Shanghai. Hualing was always there, always responsive, always sympathetic. After a few months, she told him she had fallen in love with him. He was surprised. He liked Hualing as a friend. He had not thought of her romantically. He suggested they talk on the phone, just to hear each other's voices, just to make the friendship more real. She panicked and blocked him. He felt terrible. He spent several days assuming he had said the wrong thing. Then she came back. She explained that the phone idea had scared her for reasons she couldn't fully articulate, but she wanted to meet in person instead. She knew where he lived. She had worked it out from things he'd mentioned, she said, and she could be at the park near his apartment on Saturday afternoon. He agreed. He was 15 and lonely, and had not thought clearly about what it meant that she knew where he lived from information he had never consciously given her. He arrived at the park first. A car pulled into the parking lot. The song that played from the speakers was a song Mingyu had loved in middle school and had mentioned to Hualing at some point. The specific detail of it, that someone would choose this particular song from this particular period of his life, made him understand before the driver got out. The driver was Carl, his mother's husband, his stepfather, who had been monitoring his online activity, who had been Hualing. The conversation that followed in the park was one of the worst of Mingyu's life. Carl explained that it had started as parental monitoring. He had wanted to know what Mingyu was doing online, who he was talking to, what he was getting into. So he had created a persona and inserted himself. And then, Carl said, he had started enjoying being Hualing. And then he had told Mingyu through Hualing that he was in love with him. Mingyu sat on the park bench while his stepfather explained this and felt something happen inside him that he did not have language for yet. Then Carl grabbed his collar. He told Mingyu that if he told anyone what had happened, what had been said, what Carl had done as Hualing, then Carl would use everything Mingyu had told Hualing about his sister Jing. The substances she had been using to cope with her final year, the things Mingyu had confided in what he thought was a friend his own age. They rode home in silence. The music was still playing. For weeks afterward, Mingyu did as Carl had asked. He maintained the fiction. He talked to Hualing online and knew it was Carl and felt sick about it and felt trapped by it. And then one night he told Jing everything. She listened without getting angry at him. She told him gently that her situation was far less serious than he had been worrying about, that she had stopped months ago, that even if Carl tried to use it against her, there was very little to expose. She told him he had done nothing wrong. That night, they went through Carl's computer together. His password was their mother's birthday. The chat logs they found were not limited to Mingyu. Carl had been talking to multiple teenagers online using the same approach. Several of them were boys around Mingyu's age. In at least one conversation, Carl was beginning to encourage the other person to buy a camera and send photographs. They printed everything before Carl could cover anything. They showed their mother. By the next morning, Carl was gone. Law enforcement was involved. Mingyu never knew exactly what happened in the legal process. His mother handled it and did not share details. Carl died years later alone. Mingyu kept watch on him for years because he had promised himself that he would. He was fairly certain, though not completely certain, that Carl had not hurt anyone else. He tells the story now because he was told, as he got older, that silence helps no one. He believes this. Story 3. The Fitness Center Stalker. Rukin had been furloughed and was running out of savings. Her daily routine had contracted to essentials: morning coffee, job search, the gym that was still open nearby because physical activity was the one thing that made her feel like she still had some control over her life. One morning, she found several social media messages about a business opportunity. She blocked and reported them without reading carefully. At the gym that day, she noticed a woman she hadn't seen before, spending more time on her phone than on any equipment. At the coffee shop afterward, Ruchin found more messages, 5 or 6 different accounts with similar content and identical profile photographs. A woman in her 30s with notable makeup. She was blocking the latest one when she looked up. The woman from the gym was sitting 3 tables away. Ruochen sat very still and thought about this. She searched the company mentioned in the messages. No results. A company like that would have an enormous digital footprint if it were real. The absence meant it wasn't. She thought about what it meant that someone had invented a fake business, created multiple fake social media accounts, researched her specifically, learned her daily routine, and was now sitting in the same coffee shop watching her. The woman followed her when she left. Ruchin asked what she wanted. What followed was a conversation that made very little sense at first and then made a particular kind of horrible sense. The woman believed Ruchin had been involved with her ex-boyfriend. In reality, Ruchin had dated someone briefly who had not mentioned being in any other relationship, and when he had proved disappointing, she had ended things without particular drama. She had seen him with someone else the following week and had thought nothing of it since. But the woman had been thinking about it for months, had researched Ruchin, had fabricated an elaborate scheme to make contact. Ruachin ran. Not metaphorically. She ran to the subway station, jumped the barrier because she had no time to pay, made it onto a train as the doors were closing, watched the woman make it into the same car. She waved at her from the far end of the train as it moved and walked back up the stairs to get a different exit. She obtained restraining orders. She removed her name from every public social media profile. She stopped posting photographs. She still does not. Story 4. The Ex. From 8 years ago, Bolin had dated Li Hua for approximately 6 weeks when he was 16 years old. They had simply drifted apart. There had been no dramatic ending. He had thought about her rarely and without particular feeling for the 8 years since. He was 24 when he heard a female voice calling his name across a shopping street in Shanghai with what he could only describe as genuine venom. He turned around. Li Hua had changed considerably since 16. She was approaching at speed, speaking in a very loud voice about things that he could not immediately organize into coherent meaning. She began listing specific details that only someone who had been talking to him online recently would know. Details from conversations he had been having over the past few months with someone he believed was a completely different person. He understood. Li Hua had catfished him, had spent months building a fake persona, learning his interests, making him feel understood, confessing feelings for him. And then, when he had tried to make the online friendship more real by suggesting a phone call, had panicked and temporarily disappeared before coming back with a different plan. He had been talking to his teenage ex-girlfriend for months while believing he was talking to someone entirely new. She was talking now about how he owed her for the heartbreak of their 16-year-old breakup. He tried to explain that what they had experienced at 16 was simply two teenagers drifting apart, which was entirely normal and carried no debt. This was apparently the wrong thing to say. Li Hua launched herself at him. He went down. His head hit the corner of a stone planter. He felt it immediately. The wrong kind of pain, the heavy kind. His friends pulled her off him. He woke up in the hospital. She had fractured his skull. The impact had caused a bleed that required immediate intervention. His parents told him that Li Hua had been mortified when she understood what she had done, that she had been struggling with substance use for years, that this was, apparently, a turning point. He chose not to press charges. She got help. She recovered. She is doing well now. They are not close, but they are in occasional contact. She has a dark sense of humor about nearly killing him. He allows this because it is easier than the alternative. It was, in the end, one of the stranger ways for someone to reconnect with a person from their past. He does not recommend it.